Yes, this will definitely be trickier than I originally thought. So I set this all up as my next rainy day project. Cleaned this whole thing with a little bit of diesel fuel just to make it. Now this morning I'm done flipping battery chargers. I'm done looking around for any mice that might have eaten a tire or something overnight. And this is really true, you can't make it up. I got up early this morning. I was hoping I could beat the rain. They said it wasn't going to rain till 10 o'clock. They lied. It's raining already out there. I wanted to do Pokey's stuff because I always have a priority list, and Pokey, of course, right now I'd like to get his stuff done. And then I look at the weather, it's going to rain tomorrow too, so, and I'm not going to try to compromise his job. So what I have is I have a priority list of 4 or 5 other little things to do on the bike, the biggest of which, and I wanted to show this, the biggest of which, this is really funny. Can't make this up. This is the center stand that belongs on the GS. Now I've been spoiled because I put the center stand back on the RD that wasn't there when I had the other exhaust pipes on. And it's so convenient, cleaning the back wheel, oil in the chain, So I said, you know what? My track days are over with the GS, so why not make it as convenient as possible? Now the part of it you can't make up. I said, oh, I'll just go to the parts bin and find the center stand. And guess what? I can't find it. And I'm starting to get annoyed. I'm saying, there's certain things about being old that really suck. They really do. And not being able to find your parts is one of them. So anyway, I'm sure anybody that's over 50 years old knows, where the hell did I put the tool? Where's my wallet? You know the whole thing. So anyway, where did the center stand come from? And I thought, what would Luciano do? I have a center stand on a parts bike. Bingo. So go over to the Christmas tree, take a Christmas tree ornament off. Now, I know that center stand, the minute I install this on that bike and I tighten the last bolt, I guarantee you're going to hear a clunk in the closet, it's going to fall off the first shelf, and I'll go over and get it. That's the way this is. Now, this happens to me all the time. That's why I'm rambling on and on about this. So this was at the top of my priority things to do the next rainy day. Well, it looks like we're going to have 2 of them. So I also have a couple of electrical issues I wanted to work out, and I thought I'd make a separate video because I am the worst. But if the electricians union only knew how bad I was, if this house, somebody ever came in and did the electrical inspection, holy mackerel. Oh. Anyway, this will be one of our little projects today. I don't think it's going to stop raining, but luckily I have a parts bike. And I didn't even look to see if this was on Partzilla, but I'm sure it isn't. That's for sure. And if it was, it would be $200. But that's what I love about having that parts bike. So I set this all up as my next rainy day project. Cleaned this whole thing with a little bit of diesel fuel just to make it half human. There's a couple of good tips about this that they should be very easy to figure out. I'll clean these up real good and put some new wheel bearing grease on them, grease the bolts. And that old thing I was watching, how ironic is this? I'm watching Alan Miller's channel. Just last night he showed how to bend the spring. I don't want to steal his tip, and put washers in between the spring. But what I'll do is I'll try to show it on my video, but I'm stealing it from Alan Miller. Well, he might have stole it from somebody else. But I found out something very cool about Alan Miller too. He says, they were interviewing him, he was at some bike show or something, and they asked him about watching TV, and he says, I don't have a TV. I don't watch TV, so I guess he never got the joy of watching a windy video. How could he be so smart if he doesn't watch windy videos? So I thought one of the things I could mention today, and it's something you don't think it's important until all of a sudden one day you really think, well, holy crow, maybe Wendy's right. Anytime I buy a bike, and I bought this one many years ago, I bet I have this 10 years now, but what happens, you buy a bike, and a lot of people buy a bike, ride it a year, trade it in on a new one. Well, I don't do that. And I don't have a real reason. What I've always come to accept as the thing I enjoyed most out of motorcycling is to take a motorcycle that I've ridden for a few years and customize it to my personal needs. Now, I've done that to every bike in my collection. And just to go back, the GS I bought brand new in '82, and at the time, the biggest thing in my life was going on these rides with a bunch of guys and seeing who had the fastest bike, and we did everything possible to make them fast. And one of the things that always was a problem with a stock GS way back in the day, because we were very, very aggressive riders, is the center stand would grind. And you'd grind it, and then, you know, after a while, you know, so everybody took the center stands off. That was par for the course. You bought a new bike, especially a bike that back in the day, these bikes didn't have great clearance, and they pretty much all dragged the center stand. But more modern bikes, of course, they have stiffer suspension, and better tires. That's the bigger thing. And almost everybody puts on one size bigger tire if they can, for whatever reason. But even that, it tends to jack the bike up just enough. And I'm a lightweight at 180 pounds, 85 sometime, maybe sometime 190. We won't tell anybody. Don't tell Karen. But the whole point is, nowadays, that's really not a factor. But the other factor is most of these bikes don't come with a center stand. So in doing my Evil Twin thing over the years, and I have done a lot of Evil Twin stuff, every bike here has been more than one bike. But the good news is I never re-registered them. See, this is the part I like, that it slips by a lot of people. I like to have a bike. I buy a bike, I try to buy it relatively inexpensively because I know I'm basically going to change a lot on the bike. And then I'm willing to spend a whole winter to customize it to what I think at that point in my life I'm going to enjoy it. In this case, I made a little cafe racer out of it. I made a lowrider seat. I made different handlebars, and God knows how many engine parts. I have different heads for the bike and different carburetors and everything, different exhaust pipes. There's exhaust pipes up on a wall that I've had on. But then at some point in time, now I'm going to be 75 years old this summer. What I want to do, I want to go back to having basically a stock bike, but I want two things. And these are the two big things. I want mirrors I can see out of, and I want to make it convenient as possible to maintain the bike. Now the perfect thing is, when I've Evil Twinned this bike out, this bike had every set of clip-ons handlebars that I have in stock. I have a whole closet full of handlebars and seats. I made 6 different seats. I made 2 of these backrests, a high one and a low one. I've changed the color of the wheels. I've made the exhaust system. Now, what happens is, every time I do something, it's a little bit like having a different bike. But the good news is, and especially in the case of the 650 that we're still not finished with yet, you take a bike that you're very happy with and customize it in some way that exactly fits your needs at that point in your life. But that's an ongoing issue, because what would work for me when I was 20 years old, I wouldn't even want that bike in my garage right now. When we used to go to the drag races, we didn't have shocks. We had a bar in the back with 2 holes in it, and we'd ride to the drags that way. So by the time you got there, no wonder I have such bad back problems. But here's what I wanted to say. You can take any bike and make it suit what your needs are for that particular time of your life. And that's I think not an important concept. That's the whole concept in a nutshell. Because that same motorcycle that 10 years ago would have floated your boat, right now it'd be a submarine. So I try to share my philosophy of Evil Twins anytime I can, and why it works for me. Number one, and I just had this conversation with Luciano yesterday. He's trying to sell his H1, and here's what doesn't work for me. I don't like people coming over my house that I don't know, especially if they look like me and they look a little homeless and haven't had a haircut or a shave. I don't want them coming in my garage and then trying to get the price down and negotiating things and exposing Karen to having some of these hoodlums in my house. So what I like to do, I like to buy a bike, keep it, and by keeping it and modifying it, I have the fun of, I know this sounds like I'm rambling, and I am. The whole objective is that the bike has to suit your needs. Now, if you gave me this motorcycle right now when I was 20 years old, I wouldn't even want it. I wanted one with a tuned exhaust and a little baby headlight and no mirrors. Who the hell needs to see what's behind you? and I wouldn't care what the paint was like. Now it's a whole different thing. One of the things I really like, it's my personal thing, I like having nice paintwork on the bikes, nice and shiny. And number two, I get to the point where I'm sure people think I am a fanatic, because I am. I like the bike to be clean. I like when I go for a ride that I'm not riding a rust bucket. Now, I thought it was worth sharing all this rambling, because a lot of times, and I know people watch my channel and they leave comments and things, and if you're at a different point of your life, maybe an example is maybe you don't understand why I want to have the radar detector. Yesterday's ride, I was riding a GS, and I was only going maybe 30, 40 miles over the limit. Not bad. It wasn't a terrible. I wasn't laying on the gas tank. But, you know, and I come up over a hill, it's a 25-mile-an-hour zone, and there's law enforcement hiding and shooting radar. Well, you know what? See, now not everybody would think that's important. But now, instead of today me cursing out and writing a check for $400, the last time I remember getting a ticket in the park, it was $400 by the time I got home. So, by having that radar detector, that wouldn't be a necessity when I was 20 years old or 30. Because I would be the guy that would be try to run from the cops. Now I don't run from the cops. I try to outsmart them. So just a question of being old. But that did save my bacon yesterday. In fact, on yesterday's video, if you look, I put the scene where he was hiding in it. Oh my God. And if you didn't have that right now, $400. Now I have to confess, I've been totally captivated by Alan Millyard's channel. I've been to England twice. I know the British, I don't know, way of life, I guess. I've stayed with people at their personal houses. I've toured the country, and it's just a wonderful place to be. But I know, as an example, they have some really creative people there. And they're at a level I can't even imagine. I mean, I was using an example for Karen. I was trying to explain, but while we were watching, is most people, and most people including myself, maybe I'd be the poster child for this. Yeah, you could take an engine apart. Yeah, you got the manual and you got tools. And I think then 50% of the people that take one apart can put it back together. And yeah, Luciano's probably good at putting stuff back together, putting transmissions in. But if I give you a hacksaw and two engines and I say make one engine, that's difficult. Now, I don't know. See, in my case, I don't know, for me, that the purpose would be, it wouldn't suit my purpose, because to me, I want to ride the hell out of the bikes. I don't want them show bikes. I have no interest in going to the shows and showing off my this or that, or my gefilte fish sandwiches. But you gotta be, that's why I don't like really old bikes, and I don't really like some bikes I can't afford, because what happens, soon as I have a bike that I can't afford, or I've got too much money tied in, I've noticed when the R1 was new, I was hesitant to ride it for the first year. So this is good. If you haven't hung up the phone, I've done my rambling for the morning. Karen's got the coffee cooking. We got to check out our garden, and it's still raining. When they get hungry, whether it's raining or not. Now, if only I could train these guys to come in and polish the bike for me while I was having my coffee, but I have a feeling that's not going to happen. Now, I heard from Bob Navola this morning on email, and he said his wife, Nanda, who got us started on this gardening thing, and I'm just doing this for Nanda. Nanda, these are the outdoor plants. They're not quite an inch high. We've got probably, I don't know, a few of them anyway. I don't know how many. It's not a contest. But this has become kind of a nice hobby for Karen and I while we're sequestered with this virus lockdown. And every day we do a little perk walk, even in the rain, but we make it a quick perk walk. Everything's coming. It's beautiful. This is a beautiful time of year up here. And this is what we're going to have all day. We're not going to, this is supposed to go on all day, so, and all day tomorrow too, so. And because you really only get, there's usually a week to 3 days between the gap between I make a video and it actually gets posted and edited. It'll probably be a sunny day by the time you watch and see this. Reminded me of old Treezilla. By the way, Mike, our neighbor, is using Treezilla's stump as a bird feeder. So, and these are our indoor plants, and this every day. Nanda, I want you to understand something. That one seed you gave us, Nanda gave us one plant last year, and that plant grew into a, I don't know, an obsession here. Look at these little guys. It is fun coming out and seeing them. Now, over here we're drying pepper seeds. We're going to plant our own peppers and see if they grow. And it's all Nanda Navola's fault. And I found the garden always grows best when you have a nice cup of coffee to start off the day. Ramble first and then drink coffee. And the birds don't seem to care if it rains, it shines, it snows. They're like me, they're hungry no matter what. So Pokey's getting whacked by the weather. If we had a sunny day today, of course, I'd be getting some silver and clear on that, but that's definitely not happening in this weather. So after looking at this, I realized it's going to be a little bit of a problem. To put this on, the bolts do not fit with the exhaust system on. And I'm going to try to see if I can loosen the back and just move that away. I only need about 1/8 of an inch of clearance, but just like Chris's R6, that bolt, they didn't engineer this up to be taken off while the exhaust system is in place. So we're going to have to get a little cute here. One thing is always handy is a little Harbor Freight flashlight. There's just a million uses for that thing. So I'll do one more dry fitting just to see if this is going to be possible. Boy, now see what would happen here. If you didn't have the bushings in there, what would happen, I could put the bolt in on an angle. But because the bushing is in there, and this is a part of the frame that has a nut welded to it, the bushing has to go in first. You can't put this in without the bushing. So it's a little tricky, but the worst is going to happen. I'm going to have to loosen the exhaust system. And by the way, just truth in advertising, this exhaust system is not the stock exhaust system. This is from an 86 that I got from Frank Straub. And to make this bracket, this is a carbon fiber bracket, because this does not fit on this motorcycle without making this bracket. This bracket was one of the most difficult projects I've ever done. So loosening this up and moving this away, I'm not sure. See, I'm dealing with non-stock parts there. And probably, if I have to, the worst is going to happen. I'll have to take the exhaust system. And of course I can do that. And I have a whole stock one for the future anyway. The next time we do some evil twinning on this. But by making these evil twin things, I always feel like I have new motorcycles.
Yes, this will definitely be trickier than I originally thought. But let me just do another look at how I might be able to do this. In this case, it's always a good idea to do a dry fit first. That's for sure. Now, if you could get the bolts in from this side, but of course you can't. Okay, so the first thing on this is I have to, for sure, I'm going to have to loosen this. And that bolt is not going to go in there without the exhaust system loose, so everything's always 1/8 of an inch off.
Now as I shine a light, I'm not sure you can see the problem. The nut is on this side, and so the bolt has to go in through the other side. And you can see if the bushing were not in there, you might be able to sneak it through, but I don't think so. I think so. The first attempt is going to be just loosen the exhaust system and see if I can pull it out of the way just enough to get the first bolt in. So this really has the look of his exhaust is going to have to be loosened. And again, I'm sure they didn't make this, they didn't design this with this in mind, but it's funny how your taste in motorcycle accessories change over the years. The minute you start doing track days, you even want to take the regular stand off. You want to move the foot pegs up where the gas tank is and blah, 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 blah. But at some point in time, it changes. And that's why evil twins work so well for me. Anyway, I don't think this is going to be maybe not as bad as I thought it was. But I remember making these carbon fiber brackets. What a job. Holy mackerel. And it really, at the time, I wanted it to be like just a drop-in fit, because I had the carbon fiber exhaust system on. And I couldn't use that bracket. That bracket fit the stock exhaust. Now I have a carbon one, a metal one, and a stock one. I guess the right word is lucky me.
All right, so with this nut off, now we'll see if this is going to be even possible. If it is, and of course I'll have to do the same thing to the other side then. Let's see how flexible this is. A little bit anyway, not much. I don't think that's going to be enough. I'm not feeling real happy about this right now. So now to do what I call a real fit, because I don't want these bushings moving around, I've cleaned this out with parts cleaner and kerosene. I want to get the bushings greased, and where the bolt goes, of course, greased. That'll help. That'll help a lot. In fact, keeping these bushings from sliding around. Yeah, it's nice. That'll work good. Get a little bit of grease on the end. Again, not a big deal, but every little detail I can do on this, I would like to do, because again, my goal is always keep these bikes forever and keep them in as nice shape. You know, when you have a bike that you're just going to put in bike shows and it doesn't have to drive, or the reliability doesn't matter, well, it's one thing, but these bikes are 100 miles from home on a regular basis, so I don't want to have things fall apart any more than normally these bikes do. And they do. So what I'm trying to do is get an Allen wrench in on the opposite side where the bolt goes, that'll just kind of keep this somewhat in position. Not exactly, but keep it from falling over. I guess this is not exactly what I need to do. Let's see. Okay, that takes care of that side. Now, if we could get that right in the middle. Okay, so I have the bolts started, but it's not going to go all the way in, of course, till I move the muffler down just a little bit. And it kind of looks like it might be our lucky day, but I'm not going to break out the champagne yet until this is actually in. So now I can move this up and I can get the bolt started, and that should make the second one go a little bit easier. Once you can catch one thread on this, the rest will be easy, but I'm not so sure we're going to be that lucky. It's amazing how many things there are on a motorcycle that if you could only catch the first thread. Okay, we got the first thread caught here. Wow. Maybe this is our lucky day. Who knows? Now I should leave this just caught. It would make sense to leave this not tight. Let's see if I can get this up out of the way, because that'll give me some wiggle room on the other side. It should anyway. Okay, so there's our one bolt, and it's caught on threads, but it's not all the way in. But the reason for that is that'll give me a little room to wiggle this around, because I've got to catch the second bolt. I've got to do the second thing from the other side, but the bike is leaning toward that side, so I'm going to have a lot less room to get my little tiny fingers in. And this side should be pretty redundant, except I assume, see, now this is the kind of stuff I always assume, but I'm almost always wrong. I assume if one side, if I could do that little trick to get the thing down on one side, well, it would work for the other side too. A lot of times there's something just doesn't work out that way. Or it looks the same until you go to do it, and then I don't know how to explain it, but it can happen. Anyway, we will, looking at these brackets, boy, if you only knew how much time I spent to make those brackets, wow. But it was very lucky that Frank Straub had this exhaust system, and he's passed on now and we miss him, but every time I look at this exhaust I think of Frank. Okay, so we got rid of that. Now it's going to be our lucky day if we can get the bolt in this side, hand tight, and then tighten everything up, because the bolts have to be tight before I can do that Allen Malyard thing with the spring. So we're going to find out now if it's our lucky day. Okay, we got the bolt. Let's just see if... Okay, that has the look of that it might be our lucky day. Let's see if we can tighten this bolt up. If we can at least get it hand tight, that'll be nice. Or if we can catch one thread, that'll be nice.
As I went in and took a coffee break, it's really coming down now. It's really, the weatherman for a change was right. Rain all day. So glad we got this done, and Pokey's going to have to be on the back burner.
All right, so the next step on this, I got to tighten the two bolts up and see, because this is not the stock exhaust system, to see if there's any clearance issue. I didn't give that a thought until just now, but see if there's a clearance issue on this. Now as I button this up, I'm looking to see how much clearance I have. Again, because we don't have the stock exhaust system on here. So that of course is a little bit of an issue. And when I'm all done here, I'll tighten all the bolts up on the engine and everything too, just to make sure none of them are loose. But cheap insurance. But now we got to see if we have, with the exhaust system nice and tight, see if this is going to be a clearance issue, and I hope it isn't. And we're going to find out very quickly if we have an issue here that I wasn't sure. Because you never know. The problem is you never know until you actually button something up if it's going to be a tight fit. If there's some interference, and again, that's a bridge I have to cross. I have to see what I can do, whether I can bend something, cut something, make something, shim something. We will cross that bridge right away. Glad I had that extra cup of coffee. Now I'm as alert as I can be for this part of the day. See, here is exactly the issue. How much clearance there is between the swing arm and that bracket. So I don't want to have any interference there, of course. So what it looks like, this side is going to be fine. This side, even after all the bolts are tightened, everything. I tightened all the bolts up by the engine. The bolts underneath here, because this exhaust system comes apart. And this side has exactly the clearance it should have. Now this side, it's a different story. When this comes up, it is, see, because this is a little bit different shape. This exhaust system's a little different shape. So I've got a couple of choices here. I can try to bend that down and probably 1/4 of an inch. I'm not sure that's going to be that easy to bend. And that part might be bent. I don't know, because I've never had the issue to check it. But the stock exhaust system is thinner here, and it just tapers differently. I'm not sure if that's a big deal. But getting that to fit, I'm not sure even if we had the original one, and this is the one off the parts bike, which is an 83. That part bike is an 83, not an 82. So at least the title is anyway, and who the hell really knows. But it looks like if I can get a pipe on this, I might be able to bend it out. I'm not sure how easy that's going to be to bend. But in the worst of all worlds, and I always look at the nuclear option, the worst is I can just, because there's only 2 bolts to get it off now, take it off, put it in a vise, heat it with my torch, with my MAP gas, and bend it. But I'd like to be able to bend it right down there if I possibly can, but well, we're going to see. Not sure I'm going to be able to do this, but I do have a pipe. I can't get the pipe on anything substantial. I'm wondering if I can do it this way. The problem is I need to get more leverage to bend this. I'm not sure this is going to bend. It's probably tubing, so. Oh, Jesus. Holy mackerel. That thing is really on here. Each time I bend it, it's getting a little bit better, but this is really a bear. Oh, we're very close now. We just need to be younger and stronger. Now, after trying several different things, I realized I still have, from the days of doing construction work on my houses, I had a conduit bender. And a conduit bender couldn't have been a better fit. So now, after breaking my ass for so long, that's a good fit. I just got to get the rubber bushing to keep that from, obviously it'll rub on metal. There's a little rubber bushing I don't have on that exhaust system. I may have it on a spare exhaust system downstairs. If not, I'll have to make it. So there you have it. With the pipe extension, you're probably exerting a million foot-pounds of torque on that thing, but kept that tool. And even though I hate electricity, I hated every time I used it, it saved my bacon today.
So I wanted to show this, how lucky we were today. Now it's hitting metal to metal. Underneath it is a little bracket. What the hell is it? It's right here. And there's a hole in it that accepts a rubber bushing with a little piece that pushes through there. So if I don't have that in my inventory, but look at the clearance. Perfect clearance around everything. Wow. So I would really count this as our lucky day. So we need to do that little rubber bushing, and then I got to hook up the spring. Now granted, this is a small little detail thing, but it'll just make every time I have to adjust the chain, check the chain, or clean the back wheel, it'll be a convenience item, and I'll be glad I did this. And to be honest, it's always one of my favorite things, going through my junk pile and seeing if I have something that I can use for that part. You know, no, that's not good. It's going to have a little tab on it, a little press-on tab. I don't know if I have it on the other exhaust system or not. Probably not, to be honest. I'm going to have to make it. But I always give it my best shot first. So choice one, I looked on the stock exhaust system that I have, the spare one, and you know what? That bushing is not there. So I'm going to have to make one. Now, years ago, Ray gave me some of these washers that have rubber on one side. I've got a bunch of them. And I'm wondering, I just got to see if I can put this in backwards, because the stand is just going to hit rubber. If I can get that washer, I can cut it to size, but have the rubber on one side. I want the rubber to hit that and not hit the bolt head. If not, I'll carve one out of solid rubber if I have to. Now when that goes up there, it obviously bottoms out on that piece, and it maintains that clearance between the pipe. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to have to carve one up here. Now, in looking through some of the other things I had, and I really did some digging and dumpster diving, but I did find a part that looks like it's going to work perfectly. See, because this is the part I want to hit. I don't want it to hit a bolt. This should work fine. So that bushing is now exactly, that might even be the bushing that's supposed to be in there. I don't know. But it's a really a big job getting that in there. But what makes it a little bit easier, you have to poke it with a screwdriver, a little screwdriver. What I couldn't get a camera down here. What will make it easier, just put some simple green or soap or Windex or something on it. And you can see that bottoms out, maintains the clearance. And that worked out. That just couldn't have been any better. So I want to be honest, I have learned a lot from Alan Milliard from his channel. The idea of this is, if you go to put this spring on, you try to stretch it even with pliers and things. It's difficult. Now, his trick is something, actually I've seen other people tell me this, and it's not a question. See, that's the beautiful thing about YouTube. It's not like somebody's getting paid for any of this, but what you do is you put washers in here, and of course we have a bundle of these. So I'm just going to pick washers at random and hope that my vise doesn't break. But that's one thing I have to upgrade soon, is a vise. I love Alan Milliard's vise. You could put a car in it. Now, that holds that a little bit open, and now you put it basically the other way. And you put one there, and you put as many as you need until the spring is long enough, and hope that they don't fall out like that. How come Allen's don't fall out? Only mine fall out. But anyway, I think I've heard you put pennies in here. Maybe you can't put them on even sides. Maybe I should go watch the video a little more. But anyway, you want to have a certain amount. This stretches the spring, just makes it easier to put on. So I'm trying to build on Allen's, or whoever invented this technology. Well, in my case, this is a very strong spring, you can imagine. And you can't really get, it's not like a side stand spring. So what I found is a little bit of an upgrade is get the washers in, and as soon as you bend it the other way, they fall out. Put a little tape around it. And what I did here, I put tape around. As I do each one, I put another piece of tape, because I want the length of that spring to get longer. And it's just going to make it a little bit easier to put it back on. So I'm not sure if that's going to work. I've got 6 washers in there. When Alan was doing this, he had 8. But if I can't get this in there conveniently, I'll have to come in and just take take some tape off and put some more washers. So I won't bring the washers out until I'm done here. So even with 6 washers in there, it's not enough. I've got to go downstairs, and I thought 6 was going to be enough. I was wrong. But the tape is definitely holding everything in position. Okay, I'm ready for another attempt at getting that on. Now, what makes this difficult? A couple of things make it difficult. If you understand geometry, the spring, you need to hold the kickstand up as high as it'll go. Then you got to get your hands in an area that you can't get any tools at all in there and move them around. So it's really, really a problem to get that in there without, if you don't have the bike on a lift or something, I guess maybe you could do that too. And of course we have a lift, so maybe we even have to do that. But I know Alan, when he mentioned the thing, and I've noticed it too, the spring did get a little bit longer, but you can't use a spring hook to pull it. It's impossible. That spring is so strong. I had it in a vise, and by pulling it on a spring hook, I couldn't make it move a 1/16 of an inch. So when you're laying on your back and crooked and you can't see what you're doing, it gets even trickier. Now, I always say how funny it is. There is always a big part of a job goes, and it should take a long time, and it goes right on, the bolts, the muffler, no problem. And then there's always that little thing that makes you crazy. So anyway, we're going to give this our best shot. Once again, this has, and part of it is you got to be able to hold the stand. See, the geometry involved is when the stand is all the way up, the spring is under the least amount of tension, so that's where you want to hook it. Now this is really tricky getting this in here. Boy, is this ever. And the problem is you can hardly see in here either. Oh, I'll bet everybody out there is laughing. Now, I tried already. I had vice grip pliers out. I still have vice grips. I tried grabbing this with vice grips just to see. I may have to put more washers in this, make the spring a lot longer. I don't know. Okay, so, okay, believe it or not, we have the spring in there. And now I got to cut the tape off and pull the washers out. Now, when Alan did this, you put the spring and all the washers fell out. I guarantee you my washers are going to stick in there. I'm not even sure you can see what the issue is with that spring. But the tape obviously did help. And now I've got to cut all that tape off, and then hopefully by lowering the stand the washers will fall out. So I can't wait to see if this is going to actually, let's see. Yeah, the washers didn't fall out. So Allen's washers pop out. Mine I got to pull out with a screwdriver, but they do come right out, of course. But the tape did its job. Boy, without the tape, this would be a really frustrating job. So, go on those bolts for obvious reasons. You wouldn't want to be riding down a road and the center stand came off and jammed up your chain or your back wheel or something. So these are an important little thing, and they are a little challenging to get in. So with that in, and it just couldn't have worked out better. And it just reminds me, there was a point in my life when having a center stand wouldn't have been important right now. And what happened when I did the one on the RD, I realized, hey, I missed that. I miss being able to just put it up on a center stand, do the chain, do the wheel. Well, it makes it easier for me anyway. Now, one funny story about center stands. Bob Navola just had gotten his brand new VFR, and it didn't have a center stand because I guess he bought the economy model or something that only I would do. But anyway, he got the center stand from Honda, and he called the A-team up for their illustrious help. We all gather at his house. His wife makes a pot of coffee. We get the cookies and donuts going. And, of course, the expert that I am, I take charge of the whole job. And I get the job done. I get the stand in. You got to take the motor out of the bike. You got to take the front wheel off. You got to take the exhaust pipes off. It was a giant nightmare putting that on. Nothing like this. It was really, and Bob did most of the work himself before we even got there because it was on the directions, how to put that center stand on. And I know he'll remember this. I know everybody that was there will remember this. We spent a good hour, I swear to God, an hour, and I tried to get that bolt from this side. I was sitting on this side and tried to get that bolt in, and no matter what you did, took the exhaust pipes off, took the mufflers off, that bolt just couldn't get it in. And then we finally decided we'll read the directions. Nothing on the directions tells you anything. And then I happen to notice, genius that I am, I look at the bolt and I say, what's wrong with its reverse thread? Because if you have a threaded on one, because it's constantly tightening instead of constantly loosening. The one on this side was reverse thread. As soon as we knew that, turned it this way, job done. Bob laughed, and Nanda handed me a zinnia plant and said, go home and plant this zinnia. And that's how the zinnia plants got started at my house. So I wanted to end this video on a positive note. I'll clean the back wheel of the bike up here, just to make it look like I got my money's worth here. But the whole thing I learned today, the trick with the spring works, but boy, you got to put a lot of washers in for that spring. That spring is a killer. And if you understand the geometry of when that spring stretches and releases, even when it's in its released position, it's still under tension. But if, and I realize now, you know, you got to remember, I have a very high IQ. What would have made it even easier, had I not put the rubber bushing in, it would have allowed the kickstand to come up just a little bit more. Or in the worst of all worlds, I could have taken, well, it's a big job to take the exhaust system off this bike. Take the exhaust system off because you could bring it up further and the spring would have went right on. But we figured out, we used, and thank you Alan, and thank you everybody that contributes stuff out to YouTube, because I use it virtually every day. I try to repay the favor, even with little things like how to do this job, because for God knows there may be somebody putting a center stand on a bike and they can't figure out that those Hondas have reverse bolts or whatever. And I know that's already out on the channel, but I do like having clean stuff. I don't know what it is. Maybe in a previous life I was homeless or something. I don't know. But I know this is going to work for me at this point in my life. Having bikes clean, very important. There was a time when having the fastest bike at the stoplight and getting to the next stoplight was the most important. Doesn't matter at all anymore. I'd rather have a clean bike and be the second one to the stoplight. Anyway, I do want to thank the healthcare workers. Obviously, even on a rainy day like this, I'm sitting out in the garage here. I can't do much. I don't know anything about medicine. And some people say I don't know anything about motorcycles or model planes. Maybe they're all right. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you did enjoy the video, and check out Alan Milliard. I keep calling him Mallard or something. Alan, I apologize. But when people are super creative or super good at what they do, you can learn from them. I've learned something that will save, it saved my day today, that I didn't have to take an exhaust system off. And it's all out on YouTube for free. So again, thanks for watching. And please, if you have something good to share, share it with all of us. I'd like to know it too. And thanks for watching.